Hi there, in this first lesson we'll be making the first scene of our promotional video. Right-click here, New Composition, and we'll name it Scene 1. In Preset, set it to HDTV 1080 by 29.27 frames per second. The duration will be just 4 seconds and 15 frames. Okay. The first thing we'll do is add a layer for the background. So go to Layer, New, Solid. Call it Background and make it white. Okay. Lock the layer so it doesn't move. Go to the Rectangle tool and double-click. And as you can see, a rectangle has been created the same size as the artboard. Here in Shape Layer, see that you have in the contents this rectangle. If you click on the triangle here, you can see the settings that you can adjust. Let's go firstly to the path. The size is set to 1020 by 1080. If you want to adjust this, see how both move together and the size changes proportionally. That's because this option is activated, Constraint Proportions. If you click on this icon, you deactivate this. Now you can change this to 1340 and this one to 90. We are only going to animate the length, so click on the stopwatch to create a keyframe. And our timeline is at the start. Take it up to frame number 25 and add another keyframe. Now go up to second 3, frame 25. Around here. You can check where you are by looking here. Here we'll add another keyframe. And now go to second 4, frame 10. Make sure that's where you are and add another keyframe. Right at the beginning, we'll set the length to 0 pixels. Then it will get longer. And right at the end, we'll set it back to 0. To make the animation smoother, let's select the 4 keyframes. Right-click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Go to the graph editor and adjust the curve like this. And the effect is that it starts off slowly, in the middle it gets faster, and then it finishes slowly again. The green line represents the value of the height. That's why it's linear, because it's not animated. We'll do the same for the curve at the end. I've moved it here a little too much, so just Ctrl Z to undo. Be careful with this, you can hold Shift while doing this so it doesn't move. Let's take a look at our animation. Great! Change the name of this layer to Rectangle. Now we'll carry on by creating the text that's going to go inside our rectangle. Select the text tool and then click where we want to write. So you could put something like this: Best online learning site of graphic design. Set the character to Verdana and the size to 36 pixels. Select Left Align Text. Then move the text to put it in place. Change the color to a dark gray. Okay. We'll adjust the color of the rectangle. Let's make it a little bit lighter. Okay. Click on the text layer to change the name. Now we're going to animate the text so it looks like it's being typed out. In Effects and Presets, select Typewriter. Put the timeline at frame 20. And to apply the effects, you just need to drag it over here. Like this. Press U, and as you can see, 2 keyframes have been created. Drag this last keyframe to second number 2, frame 10. And there's our animation so far. Select both and right-click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Okay, now what we need to do is make the icon that will appear here as if it's being clicked. So what we'll do is go to the Shape tools and select Ellipse. Double-click to get our ellipse. Again, go to Contents where you can adjust the settings. In the path, we'll adjust the size to 39 by 39 pixels. Like before, as this option is activated, then the other values has been changed proportionally. So click on the icon to deactivate it, then you can change the values individually. Zoom in a little. We can't see it because it's the same color as the rectangle. But in this case, it's not going to have a fill, only a stroke. So remove this. We'll increase the stroke and change the color to a dark gray. Make it 6 pixels. Move it over here. We could make it a bit thicker. 8 pixels. And now with the layer selected, go to the rectangle tool and double-click. Our rectangle has been created on the whole composition, but as it's just a stroke, you can't see it yet. Again, go to the contents of the rectangle and reduce the size. So now it comes into view. We'll change the size to 14 pixels. Click on the chain icon by 23. Zoom in. There it is. Adjust the position. More or less around here. Make sure it's in the middle here. Now this rectangle will have a fill, and we'll remove the stroke. Let's adjust the colors slightly. Copy the color code of the rectangle with Ctrl-Z. Now go to the ellipse and in the stroke, Ctrl-V to paste the same color. And that's our icon. What we need to do now is press R for the rotation. Set this to -40 pixels and see how our icon has moved up here like this. Why is that? Well, if you look here, see that this is where our anchor point is. So if you rotate, it rotates on this axis. If you select Pan Behind, you can place the anchor point in the middle. Now see what happens when we put the same rotation. It stays in place. Before we move on, go to Window, Motion Sketch. We'll use this later. Press S to adjust the scale to 75%. Click on the icon layer to change the name. I'll call it Search. Now we press P to get the position. And we're going to adjust this to get our animation. Go to second 2, frame 5. Add a keyframe. Another one at second 3, frame 5. Then frame 15 and a final keyframe at frame 25. Go to the first keyframe. Move the icon on the x-axis, outside of the rectangle. On the third keyframe, we'll adjust it on the y-axis, moving it up a little. And on the last one, we'll make it disappear. That's our animation, but as you can see, we've got this curve in this area here. I want it to be linear. So I'll right-click on this keyframe and select Keyframe Interpolation. Change the spatial interpolation to linear. Now we have a linear animation, but it still looks a bit strange. Select all the keyframes, right-click Keyframe Assistant Easy Ease. To improve the animation, go to the graph editor where we'll edit the speed. We'll make it start off very quickly like this. Make the middle a little faster too. Preview, and that's our effect. Now we need the icon to be invisible when it's outside of the rectangle, so it should only be seen inside the rectangle. To do this, we need to make the rectangle an alpha matte. Before we do that, I just want to round the corners of the rectangle. If you go into the rectangle settings, you'll see that in the path you have a roundness option. Set it to 20. And there you go. Go to Edit and we'll duplicate this rectangle and place it above the search icon. Click on it and change the name to Matte Search. Click down here on Toggle Switches. We'll make it an alpha matte. When we preview, the icon is now only visible inside of the rectangle. We are now going to create the cursor that's going to click on this icon. Right-click in the project panel, Import File. Here I have my cursor, double-click to open it. Drag it onto our timeline. Right-click, Create Shapes from Vector Layer. Now you can just delete this illustration file. If you needed to, you could adjust the color of the fill and stroke. We need to adjust the scale, so press S. Let's put 12% and let's make the stroke 15 pixels. Right-click, Layer Styles, Drop Shadow. Go into Drop Shadow here to adjust the settings. So set the opacity to 30% and the angle to 150 degrees. Okay, zoom in and there's our cursor. Now we're going to use our motion sketch window that we opened earlier. What this window does is capture the movement. The capture speed is set to 50%, but we'll change it to 100%. The wireframe is the box around the cursor. We don't need that. All we need is the cursor, which will appear when we press Start Capture. The background is necessary. We need to see it when our cursor moves towards the search icon. We'll position ourselves around here, so we know how far we need to go. When you click Start Capture, you'll see that the cursor changes to a plus. From where I click and start to move, all the movement will be captured in keyframes and it will be placed automatically in our cursor layer. So right now it doesn't matter where the mouse is. Click and start to move all around the screen until you reach the icon. Press U and as you can see, all these keyframes have been created. We need to reduce the time. If you press U on the icon, you can see that around here the cursor should already be at this point, because the cursor is supposed to click on the search icon and then this will go up and disappear. Click on Position and all the keyframes have been selected. Press Alt on the last one, then click and drag to this point here. And while they're still all selected, let's lower them so the cursor is right there in the middle of the icon. Right-click Keyframe Assistant to Easy Ease. Let's take a look. We still need the icon to look as though it's been clicked on. Shift S and there's the scale. Then go forward a bit to add a keyframe. Another one a bit further on. Set this one to 9%. Select the three of them and apply Easy Ease. Let's see how it looks. Okay, we move them back just a little. Much better. After clicking on the icon, our cursor needs to disappear. We'll also do this by capturing the movement. What we'll do is modify our work area up to this part here, because if we didn't, as you see here, it would start from frame 0. When we moved the cursor, all the movement started from frame 0. It didn't matter that our timeline was here, as in the motion sketch window it's set to start at frame 0. But if you place the cursor over this part here, it says Work Area Start. Drag that to this part here and see how the start point has now changed. So now click on Start Capture and move so that the cursor goes off the screen. You can see here how the keyframes have been created with that movement. Let's preview to take a look. Great, now let's take a look at the whole animation up until now. The cursor appears, it clicks and disappears. But as you saw, this text stays where it is, even though the rectangle disappeared. Let's just change the name of this to cursor. we'll go back to the rectangle to make it an alpha matte for the text. So Edit, Duplicate. Place it above the text and rename it Matte Text. And we'll select an alpha matte for the rectangle layer. Now when we preview, the text disappears when the rectangle disappears. We're almost finished with this first scene. The only thing missing is a small explosion I want to add right at the moment when the rectangle closes. We don't need to have any of the layers selected right now. Zoom in a little. Select the pen tool and make sure it has no fill. Set the stroke color to a gray and make it 5 pixels. We'll place a guide in the middle, and this is the center of the whole composition. So we place the line around about here. Click, press Shift and click above to create a straight line. Change the name of this layer to Lines. We are going to add an effect. Here in Contents, you see the shape, the line we just made. Click on Add and select Trim Paths. And we'll make some adjustments to these settings. If you increase this, see how it disappears upwards and then downwards. Go to second 4. Later we'll move the frames. Click on End and put 0% and add a keyframe. Then go 10 frames forward. Add another keyframe and set it to 100%. And we have this animation. Go forward another 3 frames. Click again. Go to second 4, frame 13. Another keyframe. Go back, put 100% and start, and now this is the animation. The line appears and disappears. Select the keyframes and right-click to select Easy Ease. And this is the effect we have right now. Press B so we only view this part. Now what we want to do is to duplicate these lines to make some kind of explosion. We don't need to duplicate one line at a time, we can just add an effect. In the Lines layer, we can add a repeater. And in these options, we can change the amount of copies. And in Transform, we can adjust the position, the scale, and rotation. In this case, we want a circle. We know that a circle has 360 degrees, and I need 8 copies. So divide this by 8 and you get 45. So that's 45 degrees rotation. Set the copies to 8 and the position to 0 on both sides, because I want it to be in the middle. The 45 degrees rotation makes a circle. Now this needs to appear a little later on. Press U to see the keyframes. It seems we don't have any more room. So in scene 1, right-click and select Composition Settings. Change the duration by adding 10 frames, so make it 25 frames. And now we have more time added on. Unlock Background and select it. Then while holding Shift, click on the first layer to select all of them. Drag them to the right to increase the duration. Now I can move these keyframes so they appear later. Let's take a look. We could maybe reduce the time a little bit here. Double-click on the work area so we can preview the entire animation up to now. And that's our first scene. In the next lesson, we'll continue with the second one.